Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Well, it looks like we are. Greetings, all my followers of darkness out there, and welcome to another live review from your dear old host, Lord of Shadows. Welcome, everyone. Boy, I've been waiting for years and years to do this movie, or should I say, talk about it, and especially ever since it was released on digital. A movie that really fell under the radar for a very long time. Zero marketing, a lot of conspiracy, a lot of negative thinking, reviews, criticism, controversy, you name it. This movie had its lot of dark and negative stuff. So here I am to share with you basically my overall thoughts about it. And of course, without any further ado, I'm talking about the one and only Hellboy, the Crooked Man, directed by Brian Tyler. If you don't know who it is, he's the director who gave us the two, well, at least the movies I know, the two Crank movies with Jason Statham, alongside Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance movie. Especially from some certain shots from in this movie, I immediately connected to that movie, which surprisingly, it's one of my guilty pleasures even still today. But anyway, I'm here to talk about this movie. Boy, this movie had some history. For years and years, we have learned that they're planning to do another Hellboy movie. A lot of people thought, maybe it's going to be a sequel to David Harbour's Hellboy. Maybe it's going to be an overall reboot. And then later on, it actually was revealed that it actually was a reboot. And this time, they're going to tell the story, which is also one of my favorite Hellboy comic book stories ever written by Mignola himself. And that is, of course, the Crooked Man storyline, which, of course, again, it's one of my most favorite, and also one of, for me personally, I think one of the most well-written ones. So I was actually kind of pretty excited, to see this movie actually being made and everything. And of course, some of the casting dropped, some of the trailers dropped and everything, and that's where, how can I put this? That's where we struck an iceberg, basically. Especially after the trailers came out. So let's just get rid of the elephant in the room, shall we? Okay. The first thing which a lot of people have been wondering about this movie is, of course, how was the main man? Hellboy himself, played by Jack Casey, who, if you don't know who he is, he portrayed a small character role in Deadpool 2 by the name of Black Tom Cassidy, especially in the prison scene. Yeah, Jack Casey, aka Amung Unrama, aka Hellboy. He is the one who portrayed Hellboy in The Crooked Man. And the question is right now, because immediately after people have seen him, the criticism just simply swapped away this movie in general, or should I just even say the trailers themselves. But anyway, Jack Casey, what I thought of his portrayal as Hellboy, because the one thing before I go to my overall thoughts, the one thing a lot of people, if anyone at all watch this movie, which by the way was supposed to release in the theaters on the 27th of September, but then later on they were like, you know what, screw theater. After all this, negativity, let's just go directly to digital, which I think was actually the right choice, which was the right, or should I say, the wise choice to do, actually. Anyway. How was Jack Casey as Hellboy? Now, I went on this movie with an open mind. I didn't have any goal at all to make what's the word? Connect him to Ron Perlman or David Harbour whatsoever. I went with an open mind. I wanted to see what this guy is going to bring on the table as Hellboy. I didn't want to do any comparison whatsoever, which is one thing that people today love to do. Take one example, take the Batman or the Joker as an example, so many actors play them across decades, and everyone just simply makes comparison over and over again until today. So they're going to do the same thing with Hellboy. Now, personally, for me, I think Jack Casey, I thought he did actually a pretty solid job as Hellboy. Honestly, yeah. When it comes to his personality, his overall performance, some a little bit jokiness, seriousness and everything. I feel and the overall physical or should I say, the body language of Hellboy, I thought like Jack Casey, did actually a pretty good job. I mean, sure, like he doesn't have the, the how can I say, bombastic elements like David Harbour or Ron Perlman's, did in their own Hellboy movies. But to be fair, like I would say Jack Casey's like Hellboy portrayal is actually the nearest when it comes to the comics. Because like not just simply like when you look at his physicality, because that's actually one more thing that a lot of people have been criticizing, like, oh my God, this Hellboy looks so thin, but I'm like, time out. If you look at closely at the comics, like Hellboy was never like all buffed up like David Harbour, or even like a little bit closer like what Ron Perlman was, like he was actually pretty thin. If you look at his comics, like, he was never like, overall totally, buffed up and everything, So I would say when it comes to like, character wise, or should I say his overall design wise, I would say he's the closest one to the comics. And even when it comes to like his personality, because usually, like I said, Hellboy doesn't joke that much in the comics, as far as I remember, because I haven't read the Hellboy in a long time. But as far as I remember, like, Hellboy didn't actually joke a lot, in the comics. He was actually he had a way more serious tone than actually, like, with all the wackiness and jokiness and everything, like, for example, David Harbour or Ron Perlman had and all. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to portrayal, like, Jack Casey is definitely, like, the closest to, to the comics, 100%. But again, does that mean, is this portrayal like, Oscar worthy? Like, did he do like a tremendous, fantastic job as Hellboy? No, I would say as his entrance as Hellboy, I would say, or should I say his entrance at the Hellboy Club, I would say his portrayal was pretty solid, And I know that people are gonna make comparison to Ron Perlman and David Harbour, and most of them, 95% of them who even watched the Crooked Man at all, were just simply pointing, directly below both of them. But for me personally, if I have to give any advice to everyone else who didn't watch the movie yet, give Jack Casey as Hellboy a shot, because I would say overall his performance, was pretty solid for me personally. I mean, of course, for me personally, the best of all the performances, I admit it, for me will always be, Ron Perlman when it comes to performances. But when it comes to like closeness to the comics, I'm gonna give my shout out to Jack Casey. So overall, for me personally, he did a very, very solid job as Hellboy. Again, like I said, I liked his moments in this movie, a lot. I really liked his personality. Like I said, very close to the comics. But the one more thing I really liked about this movie when it comes to Hellboy itself is that they approached one element of his backstory that wasn't actually approached in any of the movies that we have seen him, like, when it comes to David Harbour or Del Toro's Hellboy, because like the only thing we knew is that, Grigory Rasputin opened this portal. Well, in the 2019 version, he basically wanted to bring Hellboy to the world. In the Del Toro version, he wanted to bring the Ogdruja Hut, and then basically Hellboy accidentally swoosh, just simply, went through the portal into the world of the living, or should I say, in the human world. But in this one, actually, what I really love that they explored a little bit, is that they showed us that Hellboy did actually had parents, which actually, if you never read the comics, this is actually true. He did actually have parents. He had a mother named Sarah. She was a human witch, and his father is Azael, basically. So he's basically, which kind of proves that he's literally a demon. Like half human, half demon, basically. So I really like that they explored that, in the movie, which I think was also a little bit explored in the Crooked Man comic book storyline. But overall, I'm not sure about that. 100%. But overall, I really appreciate they explored, that story, and also kind of keeping it, that Professor Broom, actually found them in a church, abandoned in a church, which is kind of like very close to what Del Toro did, but not exactly that much close, But like overall, I really appreciate they explored the family, he's like Hellboy's family, like backstory in this movie, just a little bit, because there basically he had two moments, especially when it comes to dealing with his mother. And even though, okay, I know a lot of people will say I'm crazy or high, but like for me personally, I kind of felt a little bit of like emotional when he was kind of like, confronting the spirit of his mother, without going into further details, But again, I really, really like that they explored his parents, which is something that in the other movies was never touched upon, But so overall, without any further ado, like, when it comes to like Jack Casey's Hellboy, I gave him a thumb up. Like I feel like he did a pretty solid job as Hellboy. Like no negative about his performances at all, not at all. Now, of course, Hellboy is not the only one. When it comes to the characters in this movie, I mean, of course, you also had one more character. If I remember correctly, her name was like Bobby Joe Song, which I think like the director actually confirmed that, or the actress, I'm not quite sure, but anyway, the crew behind the movie, they did confirm that she's an original character, because I don't remember her from the comics, and yet again, as I said, they already confirmed that she's an original character, never appearing in the comics whatsoever. Because when I was watching the movie, I was literally like, kind of like, curious, like, did I ever saw her in the comics? At least the ones I read, when it comes to her character and everything. And then, basically they confirmed that she's an original one. So that kind of, answers that question of mine. Now, of course, before I go to the other characters, if you want to find out basically what Hellboy the Crooked Man is all about, I know I should have said that. I know I should have said this like from the very beginning, but I want to just straight up go directly to the Jack Casey's performance as Hellboy. But, basically the Crooked Man storyline basically begins with like you have Hellboy and this rookie paranormal like agent Bobby Joe Song, who are basically on a train transporting this like very giant like demonic spider into their HQ, and then basically they fell off the train alongside the spider into this like into the Alpatian Mountains, where they found this like village filled with like supernatural elements that were basically created by, or should I say, terrorized by the hands of the Crooked Man, basically. So that's in a way that's the overall story. Now going back to the characters, I will say this: like all the other characters in this movie, again, besides Bobby Joe Song, which like I mentioned, she's an original character. We also had the Reverend, we had Tom Farrell, and we had I always butcher her name, Effie Kolb, I think the character of the witch was called, who is also an acolyte of the Crooked Man. I will say, like, when it comes to like other characters, I really, really like their performances, and when it comes to like their appearances in this movie, like from each and every one of them had like really, really cool moments, and a lot of their moments, I have to say, they're literally taken out of the Crooked Man storyline. Especially like with the Reverend, the entire church scene, riding this white horse, with that like white dress and everything. Tom Farrell, like his character is again just like the other two, spot on, taken from the comics. I really like the guy's performance as Tom Farrell. Now, one of the other things I really liked, which I'm going to touch upon a little bit like a few seconds later, what I really enjoyed about this movie as well is the relationship between Bobby Joe Song and Hellboy. Kind of like like a veteran paranormal agent versus like the rookie one and everything. Like Bobby Joe Song, like she's very, when it comes to like she's always very fascinated about like the supernatural elements. She always wants to research, investigate everything. And Hellboy is kind of like always was the demon agent for action, basically. Made for action. So I kind of like their basically, I really like their relationship, in this movie, between those two. Although Bobby Joe Song, like there are some moments that she kind of reminds me of Liz Sherman, actually, like especially like her struggling moments, when it comes to like supernatural powers and everything. Like if you don't know what I'm talking about, now's your chance to go and see the movie. The movie is 99 minutes long. So I believe you can swallow up, because trust me, you think the movie is long, but believe me, the 99 minutes, they go along like very fast. Believe me, very fast. So overall, like, I really like, so yeah, I mean, like she kind of reminds me a little bit of like Liz Sherman, and especially her relationship with Hellboy all the way till the end. But overall, I enjoyed their relationship. I really did. Also, what I also enjoyed, which I mentioned before, Tom Farrell, who is also one of the main characters in the Crooked Man storyline. I really enjoyed his relationship with Hellboy as well, especially like towards the end when they went off facing against the Crooked Man himself and all that. Also, the Reverend in this movie, I also really liked him because in the overall comic book story, he was one of my least favorite ones. But in this movie, sort of way I liked him. By the way, if you don't know who the Reverend is, he was basically formerly, before he chose his way, before he chose God, he was a butler by the name of Jeffrey, and he was working for Bel Air in Bel Air. Sorry. But basically the actor who played Reverend, he played Jeffrey in Fresh Prince from Bel Air. So it was kind of, after all these years, it was really kind of great to see him. Somewhere besides that sitcom. And I have to say he did actually a pretty good job as the Reverend. I really liked his overall performance. Now the actress who played Effie Kolb, the witch, what's her name? McNamara. I know that she's like an Irish actress. I have to say, like, her scenes as the witch, I would say, like, again, a lot of the scenes were taken straight from the comic book, and her performance as the witch, I thought like she also did a freaking like really good job. Like every scene she was in, I felt like she was creepy, sometimes even a little bit terrifying. Very like she literally, her acting was like she really acted like a real witch. Let's put it that way. I really like. So overall, I really like her performance in this movie. I mean, like I said, if I have to describe it, it will be creepy, terrifying, and sometimes even demonic a little bit. When it comes to like her presence on, and because when she stares at the other characters with those like creepy, like paranormal eyes. Oh my god! Like it could kind of send a chill down your spine a little bit. I'm just saying. But overall, when it comes to these characters, every single one of them gave a very, very fair performance. I have to say, in this movie. Yeah, I mean, even though I know that right now a lot of people are like, who if you wish to comment, just simply go ahead. But I know there's gonna be a lot of people who's gonna say like, how can you watch this shit? How can you love this crap? Because because as I said before, like when the trailers were released, every single one. Well, no, I'm not gonna say everyone, but like the majority of the people I've seen their trailer reactions. They were a lot of them were like literally like bitching about like this movie, saying like it's horrible, it looks terrible, it looks like a fan film. Which I will not lie, some moments in this movie it makes you feel like you're watching a fan film. I mean, look, the movie had $20 million budget, $20 million budget. So with the kind of budget they had and everything, they did the best they could. Okay, and I will say I will respect the overall hard work that went into this movie. Even though, like I said, it's not perfect, but overall, I'm not one of those people who's gonna bitch about because I watched the trailers, I was interested from the beginning, and even though personally I will say this, I still think a movie like that, I think it was a wise choice, which I mentioned a little bit, a few minutes ago. I will say this: I think it was a wise choice to release it on digital rather than in the theater. Even though some countries actually, and one of them I think it was the UK, they did actually release this movie in the theaters. So good for them. But overall, I think the digital thing was a smart choice. Anyway. Now, of all the characters that I've talked about, there's actually one I didn't mention because I wanted to give like this character like his own panel for that, which of course, besides all these characters, there's still one more, the main villain himself, baby, Jeremiah Whitkins, aka the Crooked Man. Oh my God. If I have to say which character / performance in this movie captured me the most to watch this movie all the way till the end, it is definitely, the Crooked Man. Oh my God! Like, shit. What was the actor's name again? Just give me a second, guys. What was the actor's name again? Who portrayed Jeremiah Whitkins, aka the Crooked Man? Martin Basendale. Mr. Basendale, I literally applaud you, man, because like your performance as the Crooked Man was absolutely mesmerizing. Every single scene he was in, for me personally, at least just for me, he fucking stole it. Oh my god, like I love this performance. I love like the presence that he had in this movie and everything, because I know there are some people saying that like the Crooked Man doesn't appear that much. Well, newsflash, even in the comics he didn't appear that much, but you still felt his presence throughout the entire story, like through everything that was going on. But I will tell you this, every scene this guy was in, he stole it. He fucking stole it, and the makeup on him, oh my god, like he looked absolutely terrifying and creepy. I mean, I know I said this the same thing for the Witch, but trust me, the Witch is like sunshine and rainbow compared to the Crooked Man. I mean, like his presence was like literally terrifying. Like this guy literally belongs into a horror this guy literally belongs into a horror movie. He really does, and I really, really loved, every single moment he was in. And I really also love that Brian Teller and the crew showed, I mean, also that also goes to Mike Mignola as well, because he's also one of the writers, if I remember correctly, for the script for this movie, So, but nevertheless, like I really, really love that they also explain the Crooked Man's backstory, which basically, goes all the way back. I think it was alive during the Civil War, I think, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I love how they explain his backstory. That he was like this very greedy man who basically worked on both sides of the war, like the South and the North, to kind of going back and forth and getting richer and richer. Because that's one of the things about the Crooked Man. And also, when it comes to rich, I love that he also held coins with him. Because like every single coin that he possessed kind of also symbolizes, the Crooked Man. Because for these people in the Alpatine Mountains, the Crooked Man is like literally for them, he's the devil himself, and also, like this movie just made me love the character even more, because the Crooked Man was always one of my top 10, favorite Hellboy villains ever since I discovered him through the comics. But anyway, I love how they described his backstory, like how, again, his treacherous side, how he worked for both sides, how he got rich and everything, and later on, how people basically hanged him and everything. I really like, they explain his backstory a little bit, and how basically became who he is, through like making a deal with the devil, basically. Although now I'm gonna go a little bit of a spoiler here, Now, I mean, I think it was because of the budget, but I was really surprised that actually they didn't show the Crooked Man's like true form. Which in the comics, if you haven't read about, it's basically he looks like a fucking demonic, kind of like a creepy looking demonic crab, basically, And when the Tom Farrell and Hellboy went to the Crooked Man's house, they found him basically with this like small, like, bottles with golden coins in them, and he's like basically grabbing all of them and like, this is mine, and everything, which kind of, and that crab basically is his actual form, like not the creepy zombie looking, like, Crooked Man, as we saw him, in the movie as well. So I was kind of surprised they didn't actually show that, but I guess, because the budget they had and everything, I guess, they had to make the crab, CGI, but I think they could have done that with the prosthetics as well. But I also think like maybe they wanted to make, the Crooked Man and its overall story a little bit easier to follow and everything, So, but anyway, overall, like the Crooked Man, I mentioned before, he is my favorite part of the movie, and he made me fall in love with the villain himself, like, even more, I loved him, especially the way how they introduced him in that, very particular, like, church scene. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely. I mean, the guy who portrayed him did a really fucking phenomenal job, and again, I have to mention the makeup. He looks terrifying, ugly, and creepy as shit. Oh my god! Like, I again loved him. Loved the Crooked Man and loved his performance. Oh yeah. Now, One of the things I also have to mention is that Hellboy, the Crooked Man, is very horror centric, because the story itself in the comics is also very horror themed, So, which again, for a story like the Crooked Man, it really fits, And I thought, like, the overall horror elements in it, I thought they were, executed, pretty well, because, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of moments in this movie that were like, straight up from the comics, and of course, there were some moments that, that were also added. But besides the horror, there's also like action in this movie as well. Now, I know a lot of people, which of course is one of the first thing that they complain, is that, oh, this movie is not so action-packed. It's not bombastic as, like Ron Perlman's Hellboy or David Harbour's Hellboy and everything. Time out. First and foremost, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, the Crooked Man storyline doesn't have a lot of action, okay? It's very horror, it's very, it's a very, like, self-contained story. It doesn't have connections to the bigger story. It's very, it's very horror. It's very like gothic / horror themed, and the only action sequences, as far as I remember, are like, from the church scene and when they reach the Crooked Man's mansion. Those are the only two times where you're going to see, the action scene, because most of the storyline of the Crooked Man is basically dialogue, twists and turns, revelations, creepy moments, dark moments, horror moments, and so on and so forth. Like, for example, Tom Farrell's sweetheart, the whole scene with the snake, and also, that scene with the raccoon. Ugh! Jesus, that was fucking creepy as hell. Oh my God, and also, you have the undead people, in the church as well, or like, the final confrontation with the Crooked Man at the mansion, So like, this movie is filled with the horror elements, that's for sure, So I give them praises for that, and also, whenever there is action in this movie, I repeat myself again, there's not a lot, because the Crooked Man storyline, without repeating myself again, is not very action-packed, But again, still the action in this movie, just like it was in the comics, very serviceable, and again, like, for example, like when Hellboy was first confronting the Crooked Man, I'll never forget when he was like, "All right, Snake, let's rattle." Just the way how Jack Casey said that line, I was like, oh my God, I was like, yeah, that's the Hellboy I know, and again, just like other characters, like Hellboy had a lot of great moments. And again, as I mentioned before, when I was talking about Jay Casey's performance, he did have some, jokes and everything. Now, of course, when it comes to this story-wise, because a lot of people, because I've seen a lot of people complain that the story is very boring. You don't know where it's going and everything. Well, the story overall, just like in the comics, the Crooked Man story is very simple, because I said that from the beginning. Hellboy, ends up in these Alpecian mountains where he finds this village that is covered in supernatural, elements, controlled by the Crooked Man, and basically Hellboy, goes on this mission to stop him, and that's pretty much it. He doesn't have, like I say, he doesn't have a really big, apocalyptic level story. Like it's very simple, easy to follow. I do, when it comes to that. It's not like, Hellboy, the first movie, or Golden Army, or like the Blood Queen or something. Like, he has nothing to do, it's not a story that is like that big, because like I said, it's very small, self-contained, but for me personally, I thought in this movie worked. Absolutely worked. Now, when it comes to but before I go to the final thoughts, I will also add that, I mentioned before, Brian Tyler directed this movie, and of course, he also did Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, and there are some certain camera shots that it really made me go back to that movie. It really did, like some close-up shots when it comes to like certain landscape shots, or like when a character is moving, or some action sequences, or like the scenes where basically Hellboy was confronting the illusion of his late mother. There's a lot of shots in this, that really is something that I've seen from like Brian Tyler, in the Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. I mean, usually like directors have their own personal style when it comes to like I said, some certain shots, and Brian Tyler is also one of them. Like what he did in Spirit of Vengeance, you can notice a lot here in the Crooked Man, which of course, personally, I didn't mind. I didn't mind whatsoever when it comes to that. Now, okay, I will say this. There are certain moments, I've said it at the beginning, there are certain moments when this movie feels like it's a fan-made film. It does. I mean, when you have a fucking budget of $20 million, you know that, you have to be very careful where you're going to spend it on, and how you're going to use it. Like, for example, the overall spider scene at the very beginning, like when they fell off the train and, Hellboy was trying to chase him, kill him off and all that. Like, you can see the CGI on the spider is, how can I put this? It's not clean. You can see it. Okay. Because I know people are going to say, oh, that CGI is horrible. For me personally, it's not horrible. I mean, it's not even great. Okay. I would say it was, the gray zone. I would say it was solid. I was like, it was the CGI on the spider basically, or other like different moments in the movie. I would say the CGI was overall digestible for me personally, And also one more thing, because again, it proves that they had a small budget. What I also noticed that when you have some certain moments, like for example transformations or operations or whatever, basically, they cut from like one scene. Like, actually, biggest example I can give is that when the witch left the horse in front of like Tom Farrell, Hellboy, and the rest, kind of revealing that the horse, spoiler, was the father of Tom Farrell, of the character Tom Farrell, and basically. You see the horse on the ground, and then they cut to the next scene, where basically he's human. So those kind of scenes that you notice, you kind of realize that they, when it comes to the budget, they were kind of like trying to be smart, where to use it and how and all that. So in those in kind of moments like that, you kind of realize it is what it is. They have to use it, very wisely. And for what I've seen from the movie, they used it mostly on the spider, basically. But overall, and with the spider and the other moments, I still, I repeat, I still think the CGI was digestible, when it comes to that, And again, there are certain moments in the movie that you think like, yes, it's an actual movie, but there are also moments where you can see it's fan made. But overall, I'm not gonna lash on about it, because like, I mean, again, is the movie perfect? No. Is it horrible at the same time? No. Because when I was going to this movie, I mean, the only thing I ever cared about, is just to have a super fun time, and to kind of like, add to this, my overall final thoughts. That's exactly what I got, Do I think this movie is great? No. Do I think it's horrible? No. But as I said a few seconds ago, I had a really big, super fun time with this movie. It gave me exactly what I wanted. I really, really enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I thought Jake Casey's performance as Hellboy was pretty solid, even though yet a lot of people were gonna compare him to the previous two actors, especially to Ron Perlman. And I can also see a lot of people like nagging, why didn't they give us a third Del Toro Hellboy movie? Where? Look, if there's one thing I will say, get over it, okay? Get over it. The third movie, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Everyone around it, basically moved on. Guillermo del Toro moved on. The actors moved on. I mean, Ron Perlman, okay, he kind of moved on. He still, like, wishes that it was made and everything. But everyone else, I mean, look, the Golden Army didn't do so well critically and also, at the box office. So basically, the studio scrapped the idea to making a third movie, even though like Guillermo del Toro himself said that the third one would have needed a lot of CGI on it, a lot of CGI. Especially if you're gonna concentrate on the Ogdru Shahat, the most and everything. But overall, look, at least one thing I have to say, at least guys, just be happy that we have two Ron Perlman Hellboy, movies. And again, if you don't like this version, if you don't like you didn't like the David Harbour version, at least you have the two Ron Perlman movies. So you can watch the hell out of them. But for me personally, I appreciate every single movie that came out, even David Harbour's version, including this one. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of positive I have about this movie. Now, again, it's not perfect. It's not like Oscar-worthy blockbuster masterpiece and all that. No. But overall, I had a blast with it. Like every single performance in this movie, from like Hellboy to Tom Farrell to the original character Bobby Joe Song to like the Reverend to the Witch, the Crooked Man, which I still think it's my favorite part of the movie. The story wise and action, and also especially when it comes to especially when it comes to the world building and the makeup. Now, I will admit that there are some moments when it comes to Hellboy's makeup. I'm just gonna go back a little bit. Okay. I just want to point out this one. I will notice that sometimes the makeup on Jake Casey's Hellboy, it feels like a little bit, unfinished or rough a little bit, But overall, again, just like the CGI, it was not enough to get me out of the movie. I was like, okay, because at least for what I've seen, let's just say 90% of the time, they at least succeeded, as much as they could, basically, when it comes to the overall makeup. Again. Is it perfect? No. But overall, still, solid makeup when it comes to Hellboy. And again, this version for me personally is the closest one as we can get when it comes to comic book wise. But overall, as I said, just as I said for the Borderlands movie, I really had a blast with this movie. It gave me exactly what I wanted. It got me so much nostalgic for like the Hellboy comic book stories, especially when it comes to the Crooked Man. So overall, I end up, when I watch this movie, I end up satisfied. Yeah. I mean, again, it has its flaws. It has, its dark side, let's just put it that way, But, and again, one of the main faults I always had, is that, is the marketing. Like, this movie had no marketing whatsoever. Like, I mean, we had, they had the Comic-Con thing. They had the 2 trailers. We had a few, like, casting news and all that, but that's it. Nothing else, But overall, I just hope this movie won't be bashed, because I think like the hate for this movie is really overrated. I think it's really too much. Overall, I respect their work, their hard work on this movie. They gave us, as much as they could. So in the end, I end up being satisfied. Like honest to God, I don't have too many criticisms, but which also leads me to this. So overall, I'll give Hellboy: The Crooked Man 6.5 out of 10. I mean, I was kind of struggling between 7 and 6, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to be in the middle and give it a 6.5 out of 10. Because again, I really had a good time, watching this movie. There's a lot of things I liked, especially again for the 4th time, the Crooked Man, because hey, I'm on the villain life, so But overall, I was satisfied, and what's going to be the future, after the Hellboy: The Crooked Man? We don't know. But, more Hellboy movies, the merrier. I'll be all for it, to be honest. And basically, here comes the end of this Hellboy: The Crooked Man review. Now, again, before I turn off, again, as I mentioned before, like, I know you guys, wish, a lot of people wish for Hellboy 3, but again, my only advice is for you to get over it. Just simply to say to get over it, okay? Because again, Del Toro and everyone else moved on. Ron Perlman, let's just say 90% of it, he moved on. And also, remember, when he did Hellboy, like the first movie, he was like 54. He's now, and now he's 74. Basically, he's in his mid-70s, Ron Perlman, so... I seriously, I mean, again, no offense to Ron Perlman and everything, he's like one big tough motherfucker. I give him that, but I don't know, I know because at this point in his life, I don't think he'll be able to do another Hellboy movie, because again, he got too old for this typical role, But again, anything is possible. But overall, again, we should see what the future holds. But so far, I think like Hellboy: The Crooked Man is a nice addition to the Hellboy franchise, at least for me. So with everything said and done, I'm done with this review. Thank you guys for watching. You guys know the tradition, or should I say, the drill. Comment, subscribe. Drop me a like. I will really appreciate that. Give me your own personal thoughts. What did you feel about the movie? What did you feel about Jake Casey's performance, the Crooked Man as the villain, the overall movie itself? All in the comment section down below. And until next time, until my next upcoming live review, hope you guys stay safe, secured, and had a jolly good time. Oh, and by the way, happy Halloween season. And like always, Lord of Shadows, signing off. See you guys next time. Later, fuckers.